thankful for? You know what I'm thankful for is you pressing that subscribe button in a few seconds. Yeah, but happy Thanksgiving. You might be wondering why I've got a Christmas tree back here. That's because every Thanksgiving my family puts up all the Christmas decorations, and that's one of them. Do you like it? I know I like it. So I thought it would be a nice idea to read a chapter of the Skeleton Army to have a Thanksgiving present. You don't really give gifts on Thanksgiving, but who cares? So last time I said we left off on chapter 4, the Skeleton Cavern, and I think that's right. And last time I also said that it was a very freaking long chapter. And yes, I am right. There we go, over my mic. Page 18 to 24, 6 pages, a lot to read. Because you know me, I kind of read slowly. But I mean, who really cares, right? Okay, here we go. Chapter 4, the Skeleton Cavern. I swear, realizing how exactly helpless I really was. I don't have any transportation, which is principally the most important element to get where I want to go. Scornfield is in the middle of plain nowhere. I don't even know where to start walking. I whipped up my cell and tried asking a mapping program. The screen didn't change except for a little blue circle that kept annoyingly spinning. I should have known. There's no signal. And I'm practically stranded. There's no signal to the towers, and I've lost Henry. The only thing in this deserted field was a small barn about the size of the school gym. I had no other choice but to continue forward to get information about where I am and who is here. So I ran towards it, conquering the wheat and corn without a thought. It seemed so silly, so doltish, that it was even laughable to think about it. I'm supposed to be finding black and white swords instead of this buffoonery. As I ran, my heart thumping madly, I noticed how the sun was placed. It was in the west, in about 50 degrees between the horizon and the sky. That meant it was almost about 4 o'clock. I had to find the swords before nightfall. A few seconds later, I had reached the barn. It was big and red and white, and it smelled like manure. It was very humid and uncomfortable to stay in. Sweat was already trickling down my nose. I braced myself for the landing of mosquitoes on my skin. They swarmed around my face as I started in. They were addicted to the hydrosis on my chin. I looked around. There were many dead plants and shriveled up leaves. Long and lanky weeds crowded the edges of the barn. Nothing moved. Not a single stir, except for the mosquitoes ringing in my ears. I walked in, and I instantly detected that something was wrong. The mosquitoes had abruptly left my face and flew outside into the field. I heard it sway in the slight breeze, much louder than I noticed. I heard a growl and a snore. I slowly turned around to face a big black dog. Now, this dog was in the second Coyfin book. He was in the second Coyfin book. And he was kind of the character that was supposed to kind of, just, I don't know how to explain this. He was a dog. He was kind of like the antagonist dog in the second book. I can tell you later. Don't ask. Yeah. I instantly recognized him. He was Slang, the dog that Stevanko had owned. Slang was utterly disoriented, with his fur all strangled up. His tail had been ripped off, leaving a bald patch around where his tail had been. Stevanko was the main antagonist. His teeth are an ugly shade of brown. It never occurred to me that, as Stevanko had blown up, Slang must have escaped down the cave. Don't ask questions. I remember sprinting out of there, trying to leave as fast as I could. Stevanko had expelled the cave, only leaving a few pieces of debris. I really don't remember much after that, however. Looking back on it now, Slang only grew a year older. Felt like a decade since I'd last seen him. I didn't move. I didn't want to. I couldn't move. I looked deeply into the dog's eyes. They were filled with hatred. He remembered me, and I knew he wanted to tear me down, to rip me apart, to taste my frothy blood. I knew he loathed me as much as I loathed him. I, ever so slightly, reached down inch by inch toward my pocket where my phone was. I kept eye contact with him to make absolute surety that he wasn't going to make any sudden movements. I was wrong. Slang leapt at me, and instinctively I yanked out my phone. I looked at the silver lining and squeezed the ever-so-famous button on the left-hand side. His phone has a feature where pressed on the left-hand side, it creates a sword, kind of like Percy Jackson. Don't ask questions. I thought that a beautiful gleaming sword was going to materialize in front of me, but no. Nothing happened. No sword, no protection, no nothing. I afforded myself for the ripping flesh, blood, and gore. Then the entire world fell backward. I heard a bark and a yelp. I saw blinding lights, and then nothing. Oh, it's sparkling water. My throat. I awoke and tilted my head. I saw twinkling sparks floating around, and thought, is this the afterlife? But I tilted my head a second time and screamed. I was looking straight into the eyes of a skull. It was seemingly implanted into stone wall, very mystifying. I got to my feet and realized I was in a chamber filled with rows and rows of skulls. Cement and debris were scattered among parts of the stone and rock pathway. I heard panting and gasping around me. But where? I searched around. My eyes aren't adjusting to the dimly lit corridor. Hello? I called. More gasping and wheezing. Someone was down here with me. I continued to search. I happened to have looked upon there was a giant hole in the ceiling. Okay, that explains how my vision was tilted and the feeling of falling. The hole was casting a few shadows light here and there, making it a little easier to see. But then a few minutes later, I saw in the light an arm sticking up behind a rock. I was beginning to feel like this was worse than being with that dog. Hello? I called again. Help! A voice replied, urgently. I bolted over to where the arm was extended. A boulder was careened into a smaller rock, and the arm was outstretched between the two. I tried with an effort to heave the small one off the boulder. It only moved an inch or so. I rammed myself into it, but it barely moved. I observed a branch of a tree a few yards away. I quickly ran over to it and picked it up, then jabbed it into the rock. It came free enough for the person, or whoever it was, to squeeze through. You out? I asked. Uh-huh, replied the voice. I dropped the stick, and the rock crashed down, bursting into two pieces. I looked up, and ironically, a girl was standing there. She was clad in torn jeans and sweatshirt, which was completely torn off from the arm. I could have sworn that she used that arm to wave it in the air. She had brown hair and blue eyes. She looked very similar to Charlotte, despite her hair, and her age. She might have looked 15, and she was very pretty. Who are you? I asked. Ellie Rose, she replied, with a sparkle in her eye. I knew that sparkle. I knew the name. Although Charlotte never talked about her little sister, I knew it was her. You're Charlotte's little sister. Yes, she betrayed us. Yeah, well, yeah, sorry, but she's dead. How do you know that? I was her friend. No way. You're Coy Finn. You're what's so special about me? You're what the prophecy talked about. I mean, you're gonna take down the Lord of Lightning. I'm not so sure about that now. There was a pause. I was feeling a bit bored. I said, what do you mean by she betrayed us? She was tempted by the Lord of Lightning. She was given a sum of money that any 15-year-old girl couldn't refuse. Charlotte was not a good egg. She was constantly yelled at. She was given anything to get out of her parents' house. And this job, this thing to be your friend, it was just to get out and get a life. She hated our parents. Meanwhile, I'm stuck in the black, not knowing what's going on, and then I found my house blown to bits. Lord Lightning had to dispose of our parents. He knew that they would get in the way. By the time she was 16, the Lord of Lightning was using her. She was doing it for money. I tried to stop her, but with her parents gone, I had nothing. I loved my sister, but I couldn't stand what she was doing. Then she had that job. That job would eventually end her life. At first, she was doing it only for the money, but then she actually met some people that had a heart. She actually began to really like you, and that's a fact. She had to change of heart, and I was proud. But the Lord of Lightning was angry. He enforced strict rules upon her. Charlotte hated them and wanted to break the deal, but as I knew it would, the Lord of Lightning had had enough. I was stunned. That all really happened behind the curtain? I stared deeply into Ellie's eyes. She was tearing up and turned her back on me. I'm sorry, I said, empathetically. I took a deep breath and walked toward her. My parents are dead too. I was only an infant. The day that Then she was hugging me. I was taken aback. Why was this happening? I needed to be finding the black and white sword, not soothing a girl. I'm so relieved I found you, Ellie said. I awkwardly put my arm around her. Then, after a few minutes, I said, Ellie, I kinda need to get moving. So we broke apart. Alright, she said. I looked up at the nonsensical hole in the ceiling. No getting up that way was no getting up that way, as the chamber is like a performance hall. Wait, what?
What do you mean by that?
I took a scan of my surroundings, and there was a tiny stream of water flowing down. The chamber recorded on, stretching on for what might be miles. It was damp and cool. The rats scurried along the sides, looking for leftover meat or whatever they were interested in. I started walking along the stream, keeping close eye on where it shifted or broke apart. Ellie clutched my hand. The light from above quickly vanished as we made progress, so I jerked out my phone and switched on the flashlight. I thought about Henry. I was now regretting how I talked to him, how I made him leave. I could really use his spirit right now. He had been a good friend right from the start. And now, well, it was over. How did this even happen? I was just rummaging through a barn, and then little did I know there was an entire rat-infested chamber. But what is so important about this chamber? Why was just this thing built? The farmer couldn't have done it. I was a lot of what to think. It was all so quick, I couldn't adjust. I just met Charlotte's sister, whom she'd only mentioned once in our entire relationship. And then, Charlotte, who's never really as thoughtful, as nice, as kind as she really was. How was I this so stupid? How could I not seen it? I felt like a punch in the gut, and I knew I'd have to move fast. I need both the swords to even have a chance of defeating Lord Lightning. His power is just too great. Coy, slow down! My mind flew back to the present as I suddenly realized I hadn't been walking. I almost ran straight into the stream. It really wasn't a stream anymore. However, it was more like a river. The current was stronger and rapidly churning. I looked sideways and saw the river wasn't clear. It was more red. Red! How can a river be red? And then I looked ahead, and where the river was empty, a giant lake filled with the color red. I noticed a small rock island in the distance, poised in the center of the lake. Ellie caught up with me. It's blood, she said. I know this place, I replied distantly. And I knew, without contemplating, that I had reached the skeleton cavern. And that's also from the 5th book. Don't ask questions again. Months ago, I remember my friends and I coming here, and I had found the black sword, but the Lord of Lightning was quicker. I painfully remember him slicing my thumb open to drop some blood into the lake. I reckon it's still here to this day. As Ellie and I walked up the front passageway to the entrance, I noticed the rocks that we had blasted open were now sealed, completely in their normal stage. I continued speaking. I've been here before. This has got to be the home of the black and white swords. It needs my blood. My blood. Coy, you don't understand. You've already been through too much, replied Ellie. She picked up a sharp rock and raised it to her hand. No, I snapped a bit too loudly. It needs my blood. I opened it, and I've got to do it again. I seized the rock and gently scraped it on my left hand. I instantly dropped the rock and grasped my hand, Blood poured out of it like a water faucet. I dropped to my knees and held it over the leg. Pain seared on my arm and my veins and body. I kind of shouted in agony. I heard the same voice ring out among the cavern, as it did the first time I was here. "Ah, Coy Finn," it whispered. "Your blood is fresh. Let us have some more." I pulled away, and Ellie instinctively...
It was at this moment he knew.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Sprinted over and huddled around me. She used her sweatshirt to mop up the ugly blood that was splattering all over me in the stone pathway. The voice boomed again. "You dare come back! After all the commotion you bring before us, you now want it back. You will never see the light of day again." "Stop!" I called out. "We just need the swords. Extend the walkway so we can collect them. I gave you my blood." "I think not. Your blood isn't enough. We want something more," I gasped as hundreds of thousands of skeletons began to rise out of the water. The voice crackled and faded away to nothingness. "Goodbye, Coy Finn. The Lord of Lightning is superior. Always has been and always will be." The only sound that was left was grunting and growling and moaning of the skeletons. Some had a living fire in them, some had blood eyes, but they were all thinking the same thing. Bring Coy Finn down. I screamed as the skeleton's hand seeped through the blood water and clinged to my shoe. It wouldn't let go. I've had no problem if this was only my sword that would pop out from my phone. Why was it not working? Ellie cried out as another skeleton grabbed hold of my leg. I lost grip and tumbled backwards, barely holding on to the edge of the pathway. A third skeleton wrapped his arm around my neck. I couldn't hang on, and I slipped and disappeared beneath the red surface. Well, this feels good to get that chapter done. That was a long chapter, not gonna lie. Don't judge. It wasn't my fault. I was reading kind of slow, and it's long, and don't judge that I had a lot of kind of stutters and mess ups. It's not my fault. It was me, a past John, writing this a long time ago. But anyways, happy Thanksgiving. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you back next time.
Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you want more, click these two videos. Check the Coy Finn website for more Coy Finn things. See you next time.